to gun violence and also make changes that equip our safety system to take us into the next 50 plus years, so that Portlanders really want to see.
Could you tell us what can we do as a neighborhood? What can we do as individuals to help out?
I think the number one thing that you can do is know each other and watch out for each other. There's also, watch out for the youth in the neighborhood. We need to bring back also the feeling of safety among our neighbors, and getting to know each other and seeing each other. We kind of have out of, public health needs contracted a little bit in the way that we are engaging. We've sort of grown accustomed to not to out of safety and good reason to be careful about how we interact with each other. But I think in some ways now more than ever, we need those relationships in the community to remind each other that we're here for each other. So, neighborhood associations and gatherings like this are important to maintain those critical connections and do it however we need to, Zoom, in person, but even walking by. I try to say hello every time I'm taking walks around the neighborhood because I'm craving that personal connection, that need to feel seen by my neighbors, and I want people to know I see them too. So that's probably at a bare minimum. But the other thing is that just, knowing and supporting and acknowledging people who are on the street, making it happen, community organizations that know these families that are very much directly impacted when these things happen. It's like a trauma to the whole community where it happened, right? And neighbors are scared afterward, families are uncertain. Youth need places to go. That's something that that my chief of staff and I talked about just this week, that we're going to be really looking at safe places for youth to be productive and socialize safely, save those safe places in the community where they can be kids and they can be teens and hang out with one another and not have the fear of violence maybe in their neighborhood or being subjected to those things. So I do think there are multiple ways to get involved, but I think staying in communication and also letting us know, being engaged with us and letting us what's important to you or know what's important to you is really, really helpful as well.
Thank you so much. I have to unmute myself. I have just a couple more questions from the board. And then we'll get to questions from the neighborhood. The Rose City Park Playground Committee has proposed a new play equipment to replace the dangerous structures currently at the Rose City Park. We're waiting for cost estimates from the Portland Parks and Rec Department, which you are the lead commissioner for. How can you help us in getting those numbers so we can then begin fundraising? Thank you.
That's a good question, and I really appreciate your patience thus far. We hear you, and it's something that we're very interested in seeing move forward. Right now, Parks and Rec is working with the Parks Foundation and the playground community organizers to replace that equipment, and we're really excited that you've even raised some funds. Thank you to those of you that are a part of that really important work. We're really excited to partner. And we're also working with the foundation to pursue additional funds, and the Bureau is contributing to the project with matching funds. So the negotiations around that are underway. And as I said, one of the benefits of this issue coming up, in my portfolio with Jillian as my chief of staff is she's very committed to this project as well. So I'll turn it over to Jillian to give any updates other than that, if you want to chime in.
Well, I'll just add that conversations are very active right now with Randy, who I'm sure everybody knows who Randy is at the Parks Foundation. Commissioner, I think I would just add to that this whole public-private partnership approach to some of our parks around the city are something that the city used to do during more robust financial times. And we are interested in getting back to that model and figuring out how it can work today. And our goal is to use this project as sort of the template by which we can do it at Rose City Park and then also in other parts of the city. So we're just being really thoughtful in our work right now, both with the Bureau and the Parks Foundation, to figure out how to do it right. As the commissioner just mentioned, we know that there have been some funds raised already. Through the foundation, Randy has committed to raising more funds. And so I think it would be helpful if y'all tell Randy, like, you're ready to go. and
Randy,
on
we're
the
ready to go.
fundraising piece, like, we're going to make this work. The goal is, to get it done within a time frame where the cost estimates that we do put out, they stay as such. And so we're anxious to get started, and I think everybody is there. We're just got some final things to tie up, and then we'll be good to go.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I think, we've been sitting on our hands a long time. So it's been over a year, well, since the pandemic started, even before then. So
right.
We're going on 2 years here. So it's been a while. And I know the pandemic has caused a chilling effect in the fundraising as well. And because we can't gather and play and do all the things we normally do. So let's figure out how to get together. I have a couple different area funding sources that I think will help out with ponying up at least, maybe $10,000 here, $10,000 there, whatever we can do. But I think just if we can cobble up a cost estimate and a timeline, let's go for it.
And you're saying that for a pitch, it would be incredibly helpful to have a number and a time frame. Okay, got that. Okay, I can communicate that back to Randy.
Great.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful. And the last one we have, last question from the board is, how has Portland Public and Parks and Recreation, redirected funds for programming such as art classes and sports, which have been canceled for the last 18 months? Have additional repairs or improvements been undertaken, especially as the Bureau received additional revenue from the Parks Levy?
That's a good question. And one of the most challenging things about getting into this position is learning all the different streams of funding that come into the Parks Bureau, and how all the restrictions and the ways that they can be used and the restrictions which they cannot be used. And so while the Parks Levy is, estimated to generate an average of 48 million per year over the next 5 years, which is very incredible, the levy funds cannot be used for capital improvements, unfortunately. And I'd like to also highlight that a significant amount of the money that goes to pay for programming actually comes directly from what Portlanders pay for programming in admission and fees and tuition, things like that for programming. So that revenue from those things actually rolls back into the fund to help support the other things where there are restrictions and otherwise. And so this means that because we were not able to run programming for most of those 18 months, there were no funds to redirect into costs that were not covered by the levy. So parks reduced their budget to only the most necessary expenses during this time. And so this meant that they closed their community centers during that time. They closed indoor and outdoor pools. And this means that they laid off or didn't hire most of their casual and seasonal staff in 2020. And if you can remember, the city budget shrank significantly during that time as well. So it was all part of that. And as Parks and Recreation is a revenue bureau, we're very dependent on the annual budget. And most of their revenue generating services were shuttered. Their program revenue was reduced by more than 15 million. So just to give you a picture of what that is, it was reduced by 61% in that period. But thankfully, since thanks to the investment of voters in the levy, we were able to restore some programming so that we could keep some services this summer to cover the loss, and some more this fall with, of course, COVID responsive precautions, but we're still working our way back to full service. We're still struggling with what every employer is struggling with right now. And we still want to build out that capacity, and we can't do it fast enough for what we know the community needs. But overall, what's important to note is that without levy resources, our pools, our community centers, and recreation programming would likely have been lost for a few more years, no matter what the public health landscape would have looked like. So we're very, very grateful for the levy. And that being said, we recently remodeled Leach Botanical Garden in outer Southeast on 122nd and Foster, because we had the ability to get some external funds to do that work, and also other projects coming into fruition. And when I was talking about the different streams of funding, we also have systems development charges, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, that cover only new construction. I allocated my first round of system development charges in my new capacity this year, in this last 9 months as well. And so those investments will cover the whole city, but especially improve facilities in North and East Portland, such as the development of Mill Park, the North Portland Aquatic Center that's on deck. The plans are still in development. We're still doing community engagement to assess, what those plans will look like and where. Farragut Park playground expansion, Kelly Point Park improvements, and then a new skate park at Berrydale Park. And a lot of these things, we're still finishing up. There's numerous projects that are still mid-development or coming into fruition. So there's never a dull moment at the Parks Department, for sure. But we're excited about these, and we're also excited to see and get ready to plan for the next round of charges. So we definitely want to stay in contact with you. We hear what you're saying. There's a very deep interest and love and appreciation for Portland parks that we can hear and see in your questions. And we would love to just be in touch so that we can have regular engagement around this and also hear what's important to you.
Sounds good. At this point, I have another board member willing to read the questions off of the chat line. So Zoe Ezekiel, are you there?
Hello. Yes.
Yes.
I'm Zoe. I'm a board member, vice chair. And I'm going to start reading the questions. Thank you for coming out tonight. The first question is from Zachary Lauritsen. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And I'm going to go directly to the question section. So do you support speed and red light cameras? And then if so, how can we get those quickly implemented around town?
I absolutely support speed and red light cameras. I support anything that will make our neighborhoods safer for pedestrians, for multimodal transportation, but really to keep our neighborhoods walkable and accessible for all ages. So as you know, Commissioner Hardesty oversees transportation. So it will require us digging in a little bit and looking to see what the plans are upcoming, and we will certainly always be advocating to ensure that we have safer neighborhoods when it comes to street safety. So I can't say that I know the whole process right now, but Jillian and I will definitely look into that and make sure that we lift that up.
Gotcha. Zach also asked what he could personally do as a neighbor to help.
Well, I think just this. I think this is good for me to come and to hear that you're concerned about it. You can also reach out to our office very directly. We have liaisons in our office to every single other bureau that's outside of our portfolio. So we do regularly track the progress, and we do bring up issues that neighbors, voters, constituents raise to us. And sometimes they're very specific questions. What we have to offer to the community is our ability to internally navigate and get answers where you're getting stuck or you're not getting an answer. Those are the things that we want to know. So the way for you to help, and I really appreciate that question, is to make your voice known, write to us. Come sign up for a communication at City Council and talk about why it's important. I mean, I've heard a number of times neighbors in our neighborhood come from Rose City Park to testify about things that are important to them. And I would just encourage that a lot. It's a platform where you're in front of all of the commissioners. So we all have a chance to hear that it's important to you, and we all take note and we all follow up on things that happen. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you need if you're not getting the answers that you want from other places, please reach out to us and let us know that you're trying, and we'll do our very best to help you navigate and get the answer you need.
Cool. Thank you so much. And then the next question is from Anna Carl-Smith. And I did reword it a little, but it is, the city has been experiencing an uptick in homelessness over the past decade. What should be the city's key initiatives to provide supportive services and to ensure that our public spaces feel usable by the general population?
Yeah, it's a challenging time because our city has always been compassionate about, the houselessness issue in our community. And these times have just, the pandemic has really exposed, and crystallized those disparities and those challenges in our community, and really have brought them to the fore about, who's falling between the cracks, where our safety net system isn't working. And it called, different times and challenging and urgent times call for challenging and urgent and innovative responses. And that's why I'm extremely supportive of Commissioner Ryan in his work to identify safe to rest spaces where we can have hygiene places, like places of hygiene, places of safety where people can access shelter if they need. We're working to build a better infrastructure system so that the city and the county are coordinated and that we're working in step, and also to advocate at the state level to get the appropriate resources we need so that we are not in a situation where people are suffering and where we don't have the housing stock and the services that we need. The supportive services measure that just passed is coming on deck right now too, and that provides a really wonderful opportunity to help us really shape a system that actually moves people through a continuum of services based on where they're at. We just simply, the need in the crisis has simply outpaced our capacity as a government to be responsive. And that's, those are decades long problems that created that situation that we're in today. And so it's up to us here who are here now to figure out and untangle that and figure out strategies that will get us on track and sooner. And I'm just very, very excited that we are working very closely with the county right now to figure out that nexus. We have, a lot of expressed support and a lot of leadership around the state level who have taken an interest in this as well. Again, I wish we could snap our fingers and that it happens immediately, but it took time to get us here, and it's going to take time to thoughtfully figure out a long lasting solution. But I really fully believe that we're going to get there.
So Commissioner, if you don't mind, before we leave, yes. I want to make sure that everybody knows, during the fall budget process, you're going to see, if you tune into City Council on November 4th, that is when the council members and the mayor will share the whole list of fall investments that we are going to make. Housing, houselessness investments, as well as public safety investments, and a handful of other things will be shared at that meeting. If you tune into that meeting, you can then send in correspondence to us and any other elected official to say what you do support, and we welcome that. We welcome the affirmation, like, yes, high five, do that. That's always very helpful.
What's the date and time again?
November 4th, in the morning. I believe it's 9:30 a.m. and it's broadcast live on YouTube. But any feedback between November 4th and November 10th, when we will cast our vote on that investment package, would be incredibly helpful. But the two priorities are that the houselessness and the public safety, which I think I would imagine is in alignment with most of you, that's where the conversations are centered right now.
I'll also just add, it's at 2 p.m. on the 4th.
Thank you.
It's an afternoon work session. And, yeah, I think that there will be forthcoming information up until the bump too. So stay tuned on that because Chair Kafori and Mayor Wheeler are working very closely around making sure that we're very aligned in our approach city and county-wide. So we're really excited for that, and stay tuned.
Good to hear.
Gotcha. Okay. So now we have a question from Stephanie Singer, and she says, Commissioner Rubio mentioned the need to fill vacancies in the police force. So you mentioned that earlier, but what evidence is there about increasing police staffing? And does it actually increase safety? What evidence is there for that? And then does this evidence address diversity and equity issues? I'd also like to include who is collecting the evidence.
No, I don't. So this is what I was answering before was about the short-term response, given the gun violence crisis that we are. We, for longer-term planning, we don't have evidence yet that we need more of anything or less of anything. What we have right now is an understaffed bureau that currently has, over 100 vacancies. So we need to first look at our capacity. Once we get to that capacity, then we need to look at what else do we need, or do we need anything? We need the data to make those decisions. We don't have that data. We've been really just operating as well as we can while we haven't had a fully staffed at capacity operation. And that's why Director Myers is working right now to look at that. He's going to analyze and study these things and study the structure of the Bureau. What's the morale in the Bureau? What's the recruitment look like of new and diverse officers? What kind of officers do we want to bring into the force to build a new kind of 21st century agency that we have all been wanting about, that is right sized for our city, that has the differentiated responses so that it's not heavily enforcement, but we have differentiated responses that take into effect or that take into consideration, those suffering with mental illness, those needing assistance because they're houseless, those needing medical attention. There are differentiated responses that we need to adapt for the community that is in Portland today. So we'll have more information coming in the form of data and recommendations in 2022 at the work of Director Myers. So it is an open question, but we can't even answer that question. The most prescient thing right now for us is to make sure that we're responding to the issues that we have before us, and then investing in the time it takes and the work to do that study that will give us some information that we need to assess whether or not or what we do as a next step with the Bureau.
Thank you. This leads pretty well into the next question by Kelly Davis, who is a board member. Recently, Rose.
Sorry, one more question. I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. One question, and then you'll get out.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So recently, there was an RV park next to Kelly's house, and the occupants were homeless and had a mental health crisis. He said he was forced to call 911 and that the police came but had little to say, didn't do anything. And then he asks, do you have suggestions on how residents are to deal with a situation like that? And then I have a question, which is, what are your plans to expand Portland's street response? I know you touched on it a little bit, but they seem like the organization set to deal with that. So
yeah. So to the first thing, I don't know all of the pieces, the details of that, but I'm interested in learning more. So if there's a way that I can learn about that, I would like to. And to the second part about the Portland street response, we absolutely need it. I was disappointed that it didn't pass the first time it came up. I'm a strong believer, again, like I mentioned before, in differentiated responses for different reasons. not everyone, I think it's important just to acknowledge too, not everyone needs, an armed responder to come if someone's in crisis, it's experiencing certain crises. They need sometimes a social worker. They need someone to connect them to services. They need, to be connected to care or medical services. So we've been pushing for Commissioner Hardesty and I have been pushing for quite some time to get it to be fully funded. And my colleagues are at that place now where they're fully on board with this. And so they've had their questions answered. And so all of us are working together with the leadership of Commissioner Hardesty of getting this up and running as quickly as possible. So you will see, as Jillian noted, that we are going to be, we're anticipating that that will be part of this large public safety request. A significant amount of that funding, it includes resources to ramp up and expand Portland Street response. So very excited about that.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the neighborhood, I want to thank you very much for your time and all the work you're doing and your staff is doing. Should we have people call 311? What is the response number we're supposed to call now if we're in crisis? It's either 211 or 311.
I believe it's 311, and we will make sure to get you. I think we have a handy one pager or fact sheet that we can find and send to you. And I also just want to say, please have us back anytime. It's my pleasure to be here. I love this neighborhood, and I just, really appreciate all the work and the love and the care that you're putting into it. And I appreciate the questions too. It helps us know what you're thinking, and so know that what we should be paying attention to. So thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for your attention and time and all your staff, and yeah, good to have you here. And yes, we'll certainly have you coming back sometime soon.
That's
so
great.
We'll let you go. I know you've got kiddos to attend.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Everyone. Bye.
Okay, well, we're back to the beginning. And let me go ahead and do the announcements at this point, if you're okay. Well, again, I'm the Tamara DeRitter. I'm the chairperson for Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, and we have a couple announcements that we usually lead in with, and that would include something that we've adopted, which is called a land acknowledgement. Jeff.
Yes.
Gifford has agreed to speak this.
Thank you, Tamara. So Jeff Gifford, board member, and Rose City Park Neighborhood Association has adopted a land acknowledgement statement. In the interest of time, I'm going to read just a portion of it. And so here goes. Many of the major roads in the Rose City Park neighborhood connected the Chinook villages between three rivers, which white colonizers named the Columbia, the Willamette, and the Sandy, instead of honoring the older names, such as Nachiwana, Great River, for the largest river of the three. Tamara, you're muted.
That helps everyone. Thank you very much. And now we have the neighborhood agreements that Jennifer Sainthouse, another board member, is going to share with us.
Thank you, Tamara. So in June 2021, the Rose City Park Neighborhood Association adopted the following neighborhood agreements based on the community agreements done from the Done for D.D. White Labor Collective and agreement principles from the Historic Albina Advisory Board for all of its activities, including but not limited to meetings, email, and publications. And those agreements are, we will take collective and individual ownership. We will center and prioritize the most marginalized voices. We will assume best intentions and we will bring our best intentions. We will use ouch and oops to identify harms and to swiftly apologize in reply. We will take space and make space. We will listen for understanding and remain respectfully engaged. We will deal with issues, not people. We will be willing to experience discomfort in difficult conversations, and we will expect that difficult issues will not be fixed quickly, but will continue our work to support and engage our neighborhood and related communities.
Thank you so much. Now at this point, I'd like to thank our community partners that help make Rose City Park Neighborhood Association activities possible. Those include the German American Society, Albina Head Start, Early Head Start, St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church and School, Basics Market, Portland General Electric, and Fire on the Mountain. The bronze member is TDR and Associates, Land Use Planning, and Public Engagement. Let's give them a round of applause. Virtual though it be. All right. At this point, we're running ahead of our schedule, but I wanted to see if our next speaker would like to step up or if we should go to our committee meetings. We have, the next speaker is Deborah Scroggin. Are you here with us today?
Hi, Tamara. Yes, I am. I'm here and ready to go if you'll have me.
Yes, we would love for you to step on in. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. Let me see if I can just go ahead and share my screen. I have a very short little overview for you all.
Okay.
It says that you have disabled the screen sharing.
Uh-oh. Richard, can you help us out?
I'm working on it.
Okay. Deborah comes to us from, actually, she lives in Roseway, just up the road. So again, one of our neighbors, just up the way with all this talent and expertise. She also had worked with the auditor's department at the city of Portland for 8 years after getting her degree at PSU. So a little bit of background there. And I hear she's a good Frisbee player too. I don't know. So watch out.
You should have your screen share, Deborah. Not working for you?
It sure is. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Here you go. So in the chat, folks, I hear that, or I see that Don Levine, one of our board members, responded that all you need to do is dial 311. Is that right? For a community emergency.
211.
311 to report houseless situation and problems.
And I'll be including that in the community safety report. But the latest information is you call 311 to report any situations, including houseless populations or problems, problem encounters, or for information with resources. 211 will connect. It's a common line to connect to resources like social services, mental health, housing, other emergent type things. So both numbers are useful.
Thank you, Don. Okay, Deborah, the floor is yours.
All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'll just get started. So again, my name is Deborah Scroggin. I'm Director of Elections for the Oregon Secretary of State's Elections Division. I'm really happy to be here with you all today and see all the residents of Rose City Park Neighborhood Association. I see some cat butts, some small butts. Good to see you all. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but feel free to jump in or wait till later. I'm really open to whatever you'd like. Just interrupt me because I can't really see you all very well when I'm sharing the screen. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I was Oregon born and raised for the most part, spent a little time in Nevada. I was educated at University of Oregon and Portland State University. I have only ever voted by mail, so I don't really know any other system, and I like it that way in terms of my personal engagement with it. election system anyway. So I began in elections management in 2012 at the city of Portland, like Tamara mentioned, and I held a couple of different positions there for nearly a decade before I moved to the elections division with Secretary of State's office. I've been with the Secretary of State's office full time since June, so very new, still getting my feet under me, still learning a lot and listening a lot. But I am honored and humbled to be a part of this really important organization for the state. It's been a whirlwind. I know folks think that there's off years in elections. Turns out that is not true. There is no such thing. Anyway, I started my career in public service in Southeastern United States, doing public disaster recovery issues with Hurricane Katrina, Wilma, and Rita, and also did some education service projects down there too. Very good preparation for elections administration, disaster recovery, and education. About the elections division, our mission is to conduct fair, secure elections and promote participation in Oregon's democracy. So no big deal. Support and partner with counties in conducting elections across the state. The counties really do so much of the work in conducting elections, and I can't hammer that home enough. So our partnership with them is incredibly important. The Secretary of State acts as the chief elections official for the state. So what that means is when there are questions of interpretation, uniformity, consistency of election law, that's where she steps in and makes those decisions, usually through the elections division. So our division has 20 full-time equivalent staff when we're fully staffed. We have a hybrid workforce right now because the state is closed to the public. The elections division is not technically open to the public, although our staff are available at any time to take questions, filings, candidacies, customer service, voter registration questions. We are available. We're just not physically all there in the building. We have a budget of $14.2 million in general fund, and then some federal and county specific funding, which I won't get into the details of. I just wanted to give you the high level overview of our office. So my personal priorities coming into this position, I want to share a little bit with you. The overarching one that I think these efforts get to is just building trust, rebuilding, enhancing trust. And that gels with the Secretary's mission as well, as to rebuild trust throughout the different agencies in the Secretary of State's office. The way that I'm going about that is first tackling stability. So some of you may know that the Secretary of State is the 5th Secretary in 6 years for the state. And that is just incredible when you think about it. That's quite a bit of turnover and transition for the entire office. Furthermore, she's only the 28th in state history. So if you think about that in terms of this context, it makes it even more amplified for the staff that are looking to the Secretary for leadership. There has been 5 elections directors in about a year. So just adding to the transition and lack of stability in this office. So one of my goals is to really tackle that issue and create some calmness and some reliability and consistency throughout our office. We're doing that through training, development, kind of navigating our way through this pandemic response as best as we can, and attending to our staff needs throughout a really, really busy time in elections while we're going through all of this change. I'm also looking at moving towards modernization and transparency in that modernization throughout the office in the various ways that we do business. Not able to do as much as I would like, as quickly as I would like, but we're making headway. One example is the state's replacement of the Oregon centralized voter registration system. We have a lot of folks in our office that are dedicated to this really important project that really dictates how folks interact with their voter registration online, at the DMV, through their mail, and it is really important to the way that we set folks up to be able to vote correctly. So this enhancement and replacement project is really huge, and I started looking at the contract when I was first hired. We have a transparency page that people can go onto the website, take a look at how much we've spent on it, what progress we're making, who's involved, who are the specific individuals, some meeting notes, high-level project information. It's all there. So in addition to that and other information I'd like to see more prevalent and available on the website, I'm looking at ways that we can be more transparent across the office. I'm also focused on accessibility and partnerships. So the disability community and how they're able to vote, how they're able to access drop sites, for instance. And whether or not those are accessible, not just in Multnomah County, here where we are, but in Malheur, in the counties on the coast. If it's a little bit above the ledge, that means someone may have a difficult time getting to that drop box and being able to vote. And it's simply a matter of communication and building those relationships and understanding those issues. So I am digging in there. And then we have relationships and partners with underrepresented populations and making sure that their issues and needs related to voting, voter registration are all being met. Our Deputy Secretary of State, who is my boss, is also our tribal liaison. So she maintains those partnerships and is able to continue a really good back and forth relationship with those communities. And I'm also new again, so I'm listening and learning, talking to voters, trying to listen to the clerks and see what they're hearing, and listening to legislators, understanding their concerns and needs and what they're thinking about for both the upcoming short session and the next biennium as well. We are collaborating with county clerks across the state. Whenever we make any big change, we're always talking with them and trying to figure out the best ways to do that. They all have different business practices and ways that they operate with their voters. So learning and understanding that is really important to me in my role. We also have a lot of intra and inter-agency partners, DMV, USPS, you name it. I've looked at so many envelopes in the last month. I never thought I would be so interested in where various lines go, and the number 10 versus number 11 envelopes has kind of become my world recently. And I'm also focused on interstate vote by mail trends. So what's going on with Nevada and California, Washington, they all have started different tactics and different methods of voting, of registering to vote, of accepting ballots. So keeping in mind what they're doing, learning from them, learning from each other, and keeping those channels of communication open is a big focus of mine as well. So here's the biggest chunks. This is not comprehensive, but just the biggest chunks to give you an idea of what our office does and focuses on. We have the campaign finance section. Folks don't realize how big of an apparatus that is. The campaign finance in this state requires a lot of work and investigation and transaction maintenance. For example, there's a lot of manuals and rulemaking and investigations around all of that to help the public be able to go online publicly and search and kind of follow the money in politics and campaigns. We have voter services, of course, how to register to vote, and what's on the ballot. That includes petitions, initiative, referendum, recall, referral, qualifying candidates to the ballot for statewide, where we are the officer that takes those applications, and voters pamphlet, of course, for the statewide elections, and then being the statewide system to report elections results and certifications as well. We also have a lot of technology in elections. So people don't realize how much technology is involved in a vote by mail system. You think it's a lot of paper, but it's a lot of technology and applications and maintenance of those applications. So we have data requests and data security. There are ongoing projects and issues in the elections world, various applications I won't bore you with right here, but I wanted to put them up and make sure folks knew all the different ways that we're able to conduct elections in this state, and how important it is that we have staff that are monitoring those issues and make sure that they're functioning year-round, not just during an election. We also have investigations and enforcement section. And when I say section, it's a pretty small section, but they are mighty. And they investigate and take in election law violations, assess, appeal, make sure the appeals process is accessible, and assess penalties, facilitate hearings, and act as witnesses. We do safe harbor reviews for smaller jurisdictions that are looking for that information. What is non-political? Can I publish this? That kind of review is done by our office. We also put out election law summaries and trainings for various jurisdictions. And then triage election information that comes in across the country to make sure we don't have duplicate voter registrations, make sure that we are triaging when we have information about potentially invalid voter information. We look into those and send them on to DOJ if appropriate. So that's a part of our investigations and enforcement unit. So I just wanted to give a quick snapshot of what's going on for us right now. We are working on building capacity. I said 20 FTE, but we are about 20% understaffed in the elections world. So I know it's hitting everyone across the board right now with labor shortages. As you heard Commissioner Rubio say, for police and for the city as a whole, it's also, it hits us too. And these are really niche and really important positions. And so it makes it even harder for us. And we are trying to make sure our response rates don't fall and that none of our projects fall behind either. But that understaffing is, it's a project hire in government. And so it takes a lot of attention and focus. We're also focused on implementing legislation that passed recently in the last session. So that includes postmarks. You all may have heard that big change for the elections world. It means that you can vote on election day if you have a valid postmark on your ballot. That's a pretty big change for our elections apparatus in the state. So what that means is creating a lot of guidance and policies and rules around what that will look like and what that will look like after election day in terms of those results coming in to the public. We're updating all of our guides and manuals and public information to make the elections process easier to access as well. And then, of course, we're in election season. So we have a lot of about 22 counties have an election going on in November. So that is ongoing right now. And then we're also in the bigger elections campaign season for the May 17, 2022 statewide election. So that means candidates, measures, complaints, reviews, and investigations all coming in for us right now. The other big thing that you've probably heard on the news is redistricting. So the redistricting process has been ongoing. It's been unpredictable timelines, which adds another layer of confusion while we're trying to have a really systematic campaign season and election season for voters, for candidates to be able to know when to file. And so there's been challenges across the board. We're in various holding patterns for those challenges, but it really holds up the county's ability to conduct redistricting on their level. So it's just another issue that we are dealing with. We're trying to provide training and technical assistance so that we can conduct redistricting when we know when the maps are final. And I alluded to this previously, but a huge project for us is the replacement of the statewide voter registration database. That's taking up a lot of resources, and rightfully so. We're involving a lot of different organizations and the counties, of course, to help us test, to do the development, to do quality control and scoping on that. And again, have that public portal for folks to go online and see what it's all about. I do next have a slide on challenges, but I did see that that was one of the board questions. So I will just open it up for questions first, and that's it for me.
Okay. There are a couple questions, some which may or may not be in your wheelhouse, but I thought I'd just put them out there because that's what we voted on.
Quite all right.
Okay. To allow more access to elected office, some places like the Twin Cities have used ranked voting. What are your thoughts about ranked voting, strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, with ranked choice voting and any other changes to the way the system's in place to help the counties tabulate results, that is really a question for the legislature. So the elections division wouldn't advocate for or against ranked choice voting. What we would want to do is make sure that we have the resources in place to implement that correctly, and to make sure that voters knew how it was being implemented, what the rules are, what ranked choice voting means for them when they see it on their ballot. From what we've seen from Alaska, from New York City, some localities in New Mexico, and Benton County also has done ranked choice voting, but they didn't have a competitive race where it was implemented. So we're looking closely. We're making sure that when it does come that we are ready. We were given a little bit of funding from the legislature to modernize some of our systems. So we're taking that and looking at what it would mean to make this next step. But in terms of advocating for or against, that is not something the elections division would really comment on.
You've turned a little fuzzy. Is that is there a
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's just
Sorry
me.
about that.
That's okay. Just curious. Okay. There's also this, again, maybe out of your wheelhouse. Our two-party system forces those identified as a party member to be able to only vote for the same party in primaries. An NPR strategist stated that this tends to generate candidates that are more polarized from the other party. What's your position on open primaries to help resolve this issue? And would that have an impact on your division?
The open primary question, I went off and on again, so hopefully I'm clear. Yeah, open primaries is a party question. So I would definitely direct that question to the folks that would be subject to the impacts of it the most. And I mean, minor political parties and major political parties, I think it is a question for them. Currently in state law, a major political party can open up their primary if they alert the Secretary of State's office, and then the voters know and are able to request that. So it's a little bit of a process, and state law would need to be changed. And so for that to happen, again, not something the Elections Division would advocate for or against, but we'd be here to make sure there was voter education. We'd look at Washington State, which has that process, and we'd learn from them and see what worked there in terms of implementation.
So it would be up to the different parties, such as Republican or Democrat, to open up their primaries.
And the legislature and stakeholders involved in that process. Yep.
Okay. So what is Oregon doing particularly well in elections, and what do you see as the biggest challenges for elections here?
I think Oregon does a great job at getting folks registered to vote. I think we do quite a bit of work making sure that we see where people are and trying to figure out how to get them registered to vote where they are, whether it's at the DMV or elsewhere, whether they're online updating information, whether they have changed their address. We get that information through a national organization we're a part of. Whether they have moved, another state told us. We're regularly transferring that data to make sure that our voter rolls are up to date, and that we have an expansive list of folks that whether or not they want to vote, they have the ability to, and we have their accurate information. So I think Oregon does a really great job of doing that. And our percentage of folks that are registered to vote versus the total population is quite good when you look across the country. So I'd highlight that piece in particular.
Okay, now, I don't know if everyone transferred the thought about writing in questions, but if you have questions, please write them into the chat box so we can then ask them, or we can figure out a way that you can raise your hand and we'll flag you down if we can see you. One more question I have before you turn to Terry here, is how do you deal with getting homeless to vote, and how do you track people who don't have a site address?
Yeah, well, you can register to vote without a permanent domicile. That you can go into your county elections office and register to vote without a permanent place. As long as you can describe where it is, then homeless individuals can make their place of residence for receiving a ballot the county elections address. And then they can just go there when they would like to vote during the time period when an election is open and vote. So you do not need a physical mailing address that is permanent to be able to vote in this state.
But you do have to show up at the county. So if you're not physically able to get to the county during that period, how can you then vote?
There are some other organizations, I know, nonprofits that help make sure that they can use that as an address. But that is the primary way, is you go to your county if you want to get a ballot. A lot of folks do that too when they misplace their ballot and they're not sure what to do. You have to go to the physical location to find it. When they are registering to vote, they can describe any sort of location, whether it's under an overpass or in a grassy area. As long as they know when they're registering to vote, they'll just need to go to their county elections official to pick up that ballot.
Okay, thank you.
You're muted again, Tammy.
I didn't do that. Thank you. We have Terry first and then followed by Stephanie.
Okay, Terry Parker, I'm a board member, and just following up with something that you said about open elections. Can open elections be, could the public put up a petition to get open and vote on it to have open primaries?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That would be an initiative petition.
Right, initiative petition.
Yep. They're welcome to do that. And if folks are interested in how to do that, I can put a link in the chat, or you can call the Elections Division and we can get you started on that process.
Thank you.
So related to Tamara's question, what about voters who have disabilities of various kinds? How, so for instance, a voter who can't mark a ballot or, can't mark a regular paper ballot either for mobility reasons or maybe they're blind. what kind of what's available for people?
So there's a host of different options available, and by state law, the county elections offices are required to have physical booths there for folks that want to go in and actually vote in a booth. So that's one way if they don't feel comfortable doing that. We also have something called an alternative format ballot, which you can download and print, and you don't need to be connected to the internet. And it has larger print for folks that need that. It has the information in different ways to be accessed. And then there's also, if you are not physically able to mark your ballot, there's ways that you can sign up to have someone assist you, or you can have folks, but it can be people from different parties to make sure that it's a nonpartisan assist. It can't be certain individuals, but you can sign up to make sure that that person knows how to assist you in voting. And then we have Braille ballots as well. So there's a number of different options. The key thing is to talk to your county elections official and give them a call, because they'll be able to set you up with whatever you may need, as long as you give them enough time to do that and register with that information. There's, for example, folks that have disabilities that want to sign a petition. You can register to vote with a stamp to say that that's my valid signature. I may not be able to write it correctly each time because of a mobility issue, but I'm registered and I'm on record as having that as my signature. So there's a number of different ways that we've enfranchised folks with disabilities. There's certainly a lot more we could do, but I'd encourage you to talk to the county clerk first.
And those things, I mean, if the education were in place, those things are also available to people who don't have a fixed mailing address.
Absolutely.
So that someone who wanted to work to help people who are houseless to vote would be able to talk to their county election board and find out what needs to happen. I mean, not that it's, it's not automatic, the way it is for those of us who can just receive a ballot and vote it, but it's
right. It does
there.
require. Yep, that's absolutely true. You can also do some of that online and sign up for some of it online. Again, if you have the setup and the capability to do that, I realize that is also potentially a burden. We're working with Disability Rights Oregon, and we've been in touch with them about various ways that we can improve not just the voting process, but our documents, the drop boxes, and the entire elections process. So work in progress for sure.
What do you see as some of the most exciting modernization that you're working on right now that you think will make an amazing difference in what we do?
I'm really excited about Oregon Votes, and that's the project that I mentioned earlier on, which will modernize the way that we conduct elections throughout the state, and it will adhere to the highest level of federal standards and voting systems. So voluntary voting system guidelines, NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, and be able to be much more responsive to voters. For instance, we're looking at building in the capability to email folks about their ballot and whether it was received, to send text messages throughout the state to let folks know when and whether their ballot was received. So much more enhanced voter communication, standardization across the state, and more efficient reporting capabilities as well. That I think will really change the way that the counties and the state interacts with the counties in order to conduct elections. And the time frame for that is FY23. So it's coming up here in a few years. It is quite a process. So unfortunately not in 2022, but that's because we're really carefully testing it and rolling it out to make sure that it meets our standards.
So when there is a person that is communicating with the voter, would that person be in the county or would that be from the elections office?
It would likely be an automated system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Yes, Jennifer, you had a question? You just had a hand up. Okay.
I just moved my hands. Sorry.
No problem. Anyone else have questions there? I didn't see anything added to the chat.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention one or two other challenges because you asked me to speak on that and I didn't. And I am a very optimistic person, but we do have a few challenges that I would really want to mention for folks to be thinking about that we understand and are working on. One of them is mis and disinformation. And so we are combating that by making sure that we understand what's going on the ground and looking at ways to provide more official channels for communication. We're having one-on-one outreach to counties to provide that communication channel. What is happening? What are you seeing? What's voter confusion? What's being said that is not true and factual, and how can we combat that? So that's one issue that is overarching that we're very aware of and mindful of. We're looking at messaging with a bipartisan voice on that, what it means to have postmarks and how safe and secure they are. So that's a big issue. And then security threats and threats to elections officials is something that we're always hearing about from different levels across the state. Of course, it is different and in louder volumes in other places in the country, but we do see it here too. And so those are two big challenges that we're working on, as well as legacy systems that we're trying to update and modernize and constantly keeping maintained. And like I mentioned, our understaffing. So we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, but I know we have a lot of really dedicated staff that believe in everything that we do. And I'm really excited to be in this position again. So thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you. Terry, you had another question?
Yeah, in the Oregon governor's race that's coming up, there has been one independent that has said that they want to run. So what does it take for an independent to get on the ballot? What kind of primary does it take for, I mean, I don't know, and I'm just curious.
Yeah, so they would have to collect a number of signatures to get on the ballot if they're not in a major political party. So I don't have that exact number of how much they have to collect. I believe it was reported in the news, but I can follow up and get that to you if you'd like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I saw a couple hands. Yes, Stephanie.
I'm wondering about USPS delivery in Indian country and whether that's an issue, and if so, how, or more generally, what are the challenges for full and equitable enfranchisement?
I think there are potentially a number of issues in Indian country and trying to get folks to exercise vote by mail. The challenges that I heard of are ranging from, it's a long way to some of these counties' elections offices, and some of them don't have a lot of drop boxes, especially in the really rural counties. So that driving is not cheap, it's time intensive. And so there are certainly things that we could do and are thinking about and looking at. I'm really excited about what Washington State has done for an Indian Voting Rights Act. And so it's definitely on our plate, but we're learning more and more and talking with those tribal partners about, and it's not just one issue because it looks different depending on where they're located throughout the state.
One thing that I found interesting in my work for PPS on Kellogg Middle School is the amount of insular behavior we have with our the Portland Russian community. For the most part, they don't really trust government, and so one of the ways that you can reach them with announcements and stuff is to make sure they receive information that's read on the radio. And I've heard that's a very that's a means by which the tribes have used that during COVID as well for education. Are there vehicles like that you've been working with?
Not radio per se that I know of, but that's a really great idea. I'm interested in following up on that. I think a lot of the outreach that's done that's really great and creative and really meets people where they are in that community is happening at the county levels. Multnomah County does a fantastic job for outreach. For instance, I see them at all the fairs and festivals and events in various languages, and they've done that data to see what languages are spoken in those communities. And so I would model our outreach after some of those tactics.
That's great. Zoe, did you have a question? No, I thought I saw a hand. Allison? You're smiling. I just thought you had a question. Okay. All right. Well, seeing no one has any more questions, which is hard to believe, we can let you go and go on with the rest of our meeting. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Rose City Park Neighborhood Association, thank you so much for sharing your insights and doing all the good work you're doing. It's a lot of work.
Well, thank you for having us. And if you have any questions about how to register to vote, or want to get in touch with your county clerk, or have a friend who has a friend who has a friend who has a question, give us a call.
I think there is one person, Terry, who's interested in getting an initiative going.
Terry, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Round of applause, round of applause. Okay, at this point in time, we've got a few different committee member reports to be given, and I'd like to turn this over to our Communications and Events Committee. Can I turn this over to you, Jennifer?
Sure. So we had our communications meeting yesterday. We are in the process of updating our website. So we are looking forward to actually having some updated, just a whole huge update actually with proper links and better formatting for the first of the year. So we'll be doing some review of some models put together by Michelle Heil and Joe Anderson. Talking about Joe, he has done a lot of work on the social front. So he's activated Instagram, he's made some posts there, they're flowing through to Facebook, and he's, I think, taken some extra work on Nextdoor and remove some unnecessary tagging from YouTube, which will allow some more flexibility and visibility. So just a lot of work there. And we're looking to do some more stories, features of folks in the neighborhood and local stuff. I don't want to steal your thunder here, Joe, but just some more interest posts instead of just meetings. So look to that. He's already started. We're up like 2,200% engagement, and that should just continue to increase. So if you haven't followed RCPNA on Facebook and Instagram, I recommend that you do that, because you'll see cool things like a feature on like the free little libraries that are around town or around our neighborhood. So and then Stephanie, that is a great question. We do not have things like word counts. So, but all of the posts they do need to go through the communications committee, and Joe's the primary poster. So,
okay, because I was actually just talking yesterday to a neighbor about an idea that she's interested in writing about. So I'm just I guess, what am I asking? I'm asking for if so, what I could tell her about, if you write an article that's, yay long or something, then I can, we can submit it and see if it gets approved for posting, or, what's the right thing to tell her, or is it premature to tell her anything at all at this point?
It's probably premature to tell her anything at all, but she can always write to communications@rcpna.com.
Okay.
And she could just submit stuff directly. That'll go to the whole committee. And if she wanted to write a story for the newsletter, that's usually like 200 to 250 words. So
okay,
I would assume that social is like way shorter than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it .com or .org?
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Too many email addresses. Thank you. And then I think the last thing that's a reminder, especially out to this group, is that our next general meeting is going to be in January. And then we have a newsletter that comes out before that. And because of all of the holidays and things, the deadline for the January newsletter is December 3rd. So start working on your stories now.
Wow.
Because we have to get that stuff in early because there's a 2-week delivery time and a 1 week before the meeting, and all of a sudden you're in December. So December 3rd, write it up. I know, Tamara, it's gonna be really hard.
I know I will be still working on my turkey, it's like, oh my gosh.
I also had that same response last night. So, but I was assured. So just the earlier that you can get that in, and then we are just working on renewing our community partnerships and advertising for the coming year. So that's it. And then we don't have any events right now. So there's no events update.
Not yet. I think the treasurer might have a few ideas about events when he speaks. If he remembers that we had this meeting that we're offering up ideas for raising money. Well, Don Levine is in charge of our safety committee. Don, you want to give us a few thoughts about what you've been doing?
Sure. Thanks, Tamara. Well, I've been doing a little bit of looking around on just kind of the state of the neighborhood in the North Precinct. There was an update at the most recent CNN meeting. So here it goes. The North Precinct for Portland Police Bureau has a new precinct commander. Her name is Tina Jones, a 20-year veteran of the Portland Police Bureau. Our neighborhood response team contact for the North Precinct is Sergeant Jennifer Butcher. Unfortunately, due to staffing shortages that were alluded to earlier, there are no other officers assigned to the neighborhood response team. So she is the contact, but she has other duties as assigned as well. Something that I said earlier, people that need information and resources for social services, mental health services, housing, emergency utility payments, that sort of thing, the number to call is 211. That's a central number, and they have a clearinghouse. It's kind of serves as a clearinghouse to refer to all those services. So if you know neighbors that have some of those problems, if you're having problems yourself, or if you have members, interactions with representatives in the houseless community that are having those problems, 211 can connect to those resources right away. At the latest CNN meeting, there was an update on the homeless, or the houseless update by John Lewis, who's the lead for PDX homeless response. And according to him, if you have questions or reports concerning houseless events, 311 is the number to call. Or you can file an online report at reportpdx@portlandoregon.gov. Filing a report creates an order for a team to respond to assess the situation. And they can also provide services and resources to the people involved. Other things that came as a result of that, the site cleanup and vehicle removal services have been severely reduced due to COVID concerns. There are currently 9 Clean Start trucks in the field that are doing cleanup services. The budget has been increased to include 14 trucks and crews as soon as they can be hired and trained. Talks are underway with the city to increase the budget for rapid response and primary cleanup. And because the city does have a significant budget surplus that they'll be revising the city budget for in the next coming weeks, there might be some opportunities there. And Mr. Lewis advised reporting homeless camps or ongoing issues about 3 times per week. That keeps them current and updated and kind of raises their priority in the queue because they do have limited resources. And that's my report.
So Don, the question was raised, does 311 reroute to 911 or the police?
No. If you have an emergent situation where there's some danger or crime involved, 911 would be the number to call. If you have other issues, 311 and reporting online does take information if you had some negative interactions with people that were not violent, but have a potential to create issues. 311 would be the number you'd call instead.
I have another thing, just like a slight little addition. So if we're reporting these issues, I want to emphasize that we should try to make the language as neutral as possible, because it's very easy to go online and type a message to report and use like derogatory or inflammatory language. So just to try and keep it maybe as neutral as possible. And then also to reach out directly to houseless folks if you feel comfortable doing that / are able to, because a lot of them are just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, keep it to the facts, you know, what is happening and when did it happen and who was involved. So some of the details are the meat and potatoes for what people can go on at these organizations. One of the questions I had back to you, Don, also is you had mentioned you can do reports at pdx.org. Is that right?
No, it's report PDX at portlandoregon.gov.
Okay, could you write that into the chat line so people can see that?
Sure.
Okay,
I will do that.
thank you.
They can also take your report if you call 311 or you call 311, they can actually take the report for you.
Okay. I think Terry had his hand up, and Meg, did you have your hand up over there? No, okay.
Just
Terry?
one quick comment. If you call city county information, it's now the same operators as 311 and they answer at 311. Because I've called for telephone numbers or to get transferred to a city, you know, either to a city councilor or a city employee, and it's exactly the same operators. You dial the 4000 number, what is it, 823-4000 or whatever it is, and they answer 311. So they're combining their operators. It surprised me the first time.
Okay. Thank you so much, Don. And CNN stands for Central Northeast Neighbor Coalition. Is that right?
Yes, Neighborhood Coalition. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's not like the broadcasting channel or things like that. Okay.
No.
Just wanted to
Correct.
clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, Stephanie, can you give us an update on the diversity committee?
One more question for Don. Tamara, this is Linda Hoskin. Don, do you think that these phone numbers, and you know, it's kind of confusing, 211, 311, you know, what do I call? Do you think that the phone numbers and the guidelines would be something for a newsletter blurb, or maybe not an article, but just a blurb? Tamara, you think so?
I think it'd be great. I think a little article about this information would be very helpful.
Sure.
Okay.
And I would be
Next
happy
one.
to do that.
Okay.
I
Beautiful.
understand I need to have that done by December 3rd.
Very good, Don. Excellent. Listen to you. And
Good
Zoe,
job.
I think these are telephone calls versus, you know, the written word, but maybe Don can incorporate some of your suggestions on non-inflammatory language would be most effective to get a result.
Yeah, there are community members, just remember.
Our neighbors.
Yep.
Okay.
Indeed.
Okay, thanks.
If there's no more questions for Don, let me turn it over to Stephanie to give us an update on the diversity committee.
Okay, so the diversity committee has done at least 3 things since last we reported. One is that we have revised the land acknowledgement we have a revised draft that we hope the board will approve. We have a revised mission statement that we hope the board will approve, and we also have an equity screen, which is basically a series of questions to ask oneself or one's committee at the point where one is about to take action or speak publicly or even semi-publicly on behalf of the board. And we hope that this equity screen will become, like Robert's Rules of Order, just a part of how we do business. And the idea is that diversity work, diversity, equity, inclusion work is not something that is segregated out into a committee where there are the people who care about it and do it on behalf of the organization. This work really, it just needs to become just part of our process. And with that in mind, the diversity committee we have dissolved ourselves. So we stand ready to serve again if there's a need from the board. But what we really dearly want to see is just that all of us do a better job of holding ourselves and each other accountable to considering the impact of what we do and say, and understanding that even people who live quite close to us, have a very different experience from us, and things that mean one thing to us may mean something completely different. So that's the report from the Diversity Committee.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your participation in that Diversity Committee. It's been a diverse group.
Not so diverse, Tammy, but yeah.
Not considering, well, it's more diverse than our board is, though, I think, with Mauro and a few others. So the next is land use and transportation. Kelly, can you give us an update?
Thank you, Tamara. So we have a few things to report. One is the Sandy 51 project, which is the apartments at 51st and Sandy. The developer proposed adding 6 ground floor units in place of the required retail. They also proposed reducing the parking requirements from 17 to 16. Our committee sent a letter outlining the current parking, traffic, and safety issues, and we requested denial. The city recently ruled that with the developer and approved the additional 6 units. As most of you know, there's a housing crisis in Portland, so the city felt that the additional units were warranted. Next item is Slow Streets. Scott Cohen from PBOT is coming to our November 18th committee meeting to discuss the impacts of that project on our intersections. We invite neighbors that are interested or nearby to attend and hear more about the following intersections. So the areas he's going to talk to us about is Northeast Sacramento and 70th, Northeast Sacramento and 64th, Northeast 53rd and Halsey, and Northeast 53rd and Irving. This could involve concrete barriers and other slow street improvements. So we encourage members to join that conversation. Look at our website for the link to the Zoom meeting. Next item is the Southeast Asian Vicariate, Our Lady of Labang. Many of you have read in the newsletter that an earlier deal to purchase the property by Columbia Capital Group fell through. They were planning on 200 to 300 apartments. So those of you that don't know, this is around 57th and Sandy. The Archdiocese has promised to keep the neighborhood informed of any future updates, so we'll keep the neighbors informed. Finally, the Umpqua Bank Apartments, which is Cause on 47th. This is 100 and some units on 47th and Sandy. The developer has indicated they are about 33% leased and have asked many of the residents whether they have cars or not. So they all report back to the neighborhood association. They have parking stalls essentially for residents because they're more required. So our committee is planning on touring the building and having ongoing discussions with them about parking and traffic and safety issues. And that's all from the Land Use and Transportation Committee.
Okay, the question is, what time will the meeting take place on the 18th?
So that is our 7 o'clock meeting, 7 to 9 o'clock. And I understand, Tamara, that PBOT is posting notices to neighbors within 300 feet of the meeting, and also on other social media websites.
They promised to submit, notification to folks not only within 300 feet, but also along that same stretch that's being impacted. So hopefully that's going to be true. Yes, Terry.
Yes, I was requested at our last meeting to contact Nicole Pierce regarding the 60th Avenue sidewalks, which I thought had something to do with the RVs being towed, and because they said it was due to a construction project. But the sidewalks are not due till mid next year, mid 22. I just got the email back, or I saw it today. So I wanted to just throw that out. This coming summer will be when they do the sidewalks on 60th and probably the rest of the Halsey project as well. Secondly, Kelly, you didn't say anything about Sacramento and 57th as far as the flow streets. Is that part of it?
So that we are dealing with separately from the Slow Streets project. And so Shannon is going to look further into that and dealing with PBOT.
Okay.
Okay. So are there any more questions of Kelly right now? Nice job, Jeff, there, Kelly. Thank you so much. Richard, you want to give us an update on the treasurer report?
Well, you made some allusion to some other events, and I'm not really certain what you're talking about there. We've come through the come on, brain.
There's a recommendation from the budget committee that we can help raise some money by doing a neighborhood-wide garage sale.
Yeah, okay. I remember that conversation there. And we need some help to figure out how to make that happen. If the people over in Tennessee and Kentucky can do a garage sale all around the US, whatever it is over there, 27, maybe we can do something in the neighborhood. It would just be how to figure out to get people to participate, how to say, we would appreciate you donating some to the neighborhood association from your proceeds, but I don't know what kind of a sign-on we would get for that, or what kind of enforcement we might be able to do. Hey, we run by with our hats out like we do at the concerts. I'm not quite sure. So if anyone is interested in doing that, and we better do it before the real rains come and the snow. We needed to see if we get some planning on that. Yes,
we're thinking probably next summer as an option,
Okay.
and at least that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas was to create a map for everybody who signs up, and then publicize that map and give people billing on a both a printed as well as a digital site, so people can find out where these sales are going to take place and maybe a few of the hot items that they have for sale.
And not only billing on the sites and on the map, but then we could use that for billing them for being on those sites.
Right.
Whatever we can get on there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Good.
yeah, I think the model that I've heard of is that you charge people, $5-10 to be on
Yeah.
the map, and then you encourage them to donate in addition, but you don't have to enforce that.
Okay, so that sounds like a project to look into. In the exchequer, it's been a while since we've had a report. We've just got just shy of 13,000 in the checking account, but we're going to have to pay for this last newsletter, so that's going to take about 800 out of there. So we're still all right, doing okay, but we need more. There's always need for more.
Terry, you had a question.
I was just going to suggest that you contact Lawhurst or maybe Eastmoreland. Yeah, Eastmoreland. They both run neighborhood garage sales and do the map thing. Lawhurst is obviously closer, so
Yeah.
Just contact them and see what they do.
Okay, good idea.
And as always, we're always open to suggestions and ideas that we could implement. We're not quite sure whether Concerts in the Park is going to happen next year, but we would love for it to happen if we have more volunteers willing to step up and join the board. So right now we're a little bit shy on the number of folks on the board. So if you're new to the neighborhood, this is a great way to get to know your neighbors. If you're interested in spending a little bit of time a month helping us out, that would be great. Anything else, Richard?
No, no, excuse me.
Okay, Jeff, we're down to the Rose City Park Playground. Can you give us an update on what's going on there?
Yes, I can, Tamara. Thank you. So on October 4th, our committee had a meeting with the Parks Foundation. And, there is interest in supporting our project. And in fact, the Parks Foundation, they have a meeting in November. And at that point, they're going to consider formally, funding this project and, taking it on board. And so the committee is really excited about that. And so during this time, what we've committed to doing is not continue to forecast or to raise money in the neighborhood until we have that backing from the Parks Foundation and to move forward. So that's the update.
Now, is it true that they're also waiting for a fixed number that we're going to be shooting for fundraising?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, great. Well, keep us informed and let us know how us at the board can help. We did donate funds to this event. How much was that, Richard? To this project?
I think 1,500, but don't quote me on that.
It was a goodly sum.
Yeah. So currently there's $14,000 that that's on account at CNN for this project, and so that would of course be netted against what funding we would get from Parks Foundation and as well as against the price of the project.
Okay, great. Again, CNN means Central Northeast Neighbors. Just passing that on. Okay. Well, we are at the close of our meeting. Are there any questions from the neighborhood that you'd like to pose to us as board members while you've got us here? Zachary? Suzanne? Pam? Obi? Dan? Andrew?
Hi, I have not been to a meeting before.
Welcome.
So yeah, I live on 65th, which is, I guess, just inside the neighborhood. But yeah, I'm second year planning master's student at PSU. So I'm happy to be here, and I'd be interested potentially in getting involved with the board at some point. So I'll send you an email.
Great. We'd like to hear from you and hear you in one of these venues.
Cool.
That's great.
Thanks.
Andrew. Suzanne, you have a question?
Yeah, not a question, but I just wanted to remind everybody that we have a native plant event that is coming up on the Rose City Bluff. The first 2 Sundays of November 7th and November 14th. And it's amazing. We are getting, thanks to all the publicity and support from neighborhood associations such as yours, we are getting more and new volunteers totally engaged on this bluff. And last week we had 13 people in the dead of rain walking that trail and learning about native plants with Greg Shepard, who's Sarah Plants, and wonderful addition. So all I want to say is that the evolution of this restoration, we are now transitioning into restoration as opposed to clipping blackberries. And I can't tell you how much fun it is. We have wood chip slides going down that bluff every week. It is, which we're trying to set it up so that we can plant in those wood chips. So come join us, spread the word. This is an ongoing project.
Wonderful. That's great. That's great news. Okay, well, for the good of the order, I am willing to close this meeting. Oh, there is one question over here from Linda. Linda, you have your hand up.
No, I was trying to figure out how to clap for Suzanne.
I see it. I feel it.
Unmute and do this. Good job. Doing a marvelous
Thank
job.
you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to let everyone go, and thank you so much for joining us. And if you're interested in any of our committees, let us know. Just send us a note at info@rcpna.org. That's Rose City Park Neighborhood Association initials.org, and we will respond to you. And we do have at least 10 positions still open on our board. So we are very interested in inviting more people to join us and give us some of their insights and share their story with us. So take care, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.